So we're all familiar with Endor, the site of the Battle of Endor, where Rebel Alliance forces managed to defeat not just Imperial forces, but actually kill Darth Vader and the Emperor, leading the Empire on a path that ultimately led to its defeat in the Galactic Civil War. But today I want to talk about Endor outside of the battle, what happened there before and after the engagement that put it in the galactic spotlight. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So before we begin, I am going to just throw out there that I'm focusing primarily on canon stuff for this video. I know there's a lot of legend story about Endor outside of the Battle of Endor, but today I would like to focus on the canon stuff. If people really want a video on the Legends history of Endor, you can let me know down below in the comments, and I will try to get around to that, but that will be a much bigger video because there's a lot more to this planet in Legends than there is in canon. So let's just kind of dive right in with what Endor was before the Empire came. Prior to the arrival of the Empire, Endor was nothing. It was a small backwater moon in the corner of a unnoteworthy system in the far reaches of the Outer Rim that almost no one ever visited. It was occasionally visited by hunters who would hunt native Ewoks for something called Ewok jerky, but other than that, it was basically completely off the map, and that's where Endor sat for most of its history. A nameless dot in the night sky, which made it perfect for a tyrannical government wanting to hide a massive superweapon under development. And that's where the Empire comes in. After the Empire lost the first Death Star during the Battle of Yavin, or around that time, when the decision was made to start work on a second Death Star, a location was needed, and Endor was perfect. It was secluded enough that no one was going to stumble on it. Its presence there and an Imperial lockdown in that system wouldn't necessarily be easily discovered by the galaxy at large. It could easily be roped into larger Imperial supply networks through a bunch of smaller hyperspace jumps, which made it harder for anyone monitoring Imperial supplies to track that there was a large construction site there. It was basically perfect. And on top of that, the Empire came up with some fairly dramatic steps to try to protect their new battle station. So when Imperial forces arrived, they immediately began making some pretty major changes that did disturb the local population. You see, the Ewoks aren't just naturally hostile towards the Empire, and well, we can look at it and go Empire bad, and obviously Empire bad. The Ewoks really wouldn't have cared were it not for the way the Empire made changes to their planet. As the Empire rolled in, they built a massive shield generator facility on the surface of Endor, and to do that, they had to raise an entire village, which really annoyed the Ewok population and strained the relations between the Ewoks and the Imperials. Furthermore, because the Empire needed to keep the second Death Star in a specific location in the sky for their shield generator to work, they built a massive tractor beam system on the surface of the forest moon that ultimately caused a number of earthquakes and seismic changes to the moon that further disturbed the local wildlife and ecosystem, which put even more strain on the relations between the Imperials and the Ewoks. And that's the environment that Endor existed in through most of that first segment of the proper Galactic Civil War, from the Battle of Yavin to the Battle of Endor. It was a construction site home to an unwilling local population that had basically retreated into the woods. As a result of that unfriendly local population, the Empire had to maintain a pretty substantial security presence on the forest moon to keep the locals at bay. All of that changed, obviously, during the Battle of Endor, and I don't really need to recap the Battle of Endor. It's a key point in Return of the Jedi. But ultimately, Death Star destroyed, Endor liberated, and the Rebel Alliance, soon to be New Republic, had formally taken control of the system. Now, the New Republic put in some systems to attempt to prevent further damage to Endor, the forest moon in particular, from segments of the Death Star, which risked raining down on the planet. They installed a number of large tractor beams to attempt to grab pieces before they could make contact with the surface, and some large shield facilities. That being said, several pieces did still make it down and did cause a substantial amount of damage, although the forest moon did ultimately survive the ordeal of having that massive battle station destroyed in orbit. By the time of the end of the Galactic Civil War and the New Republic's ascension to a galactic government, Endor once again sort of disappeared from the galactic spotlight. with the planet, or I guess moon, fading into obscurity once again, and well, it is clearly remembered as the site of a crucial battle. It didn't gain any noteworthy trade status or anything like that. It just slinked away back into the background. We know at some point the Ewoks did have a civil war, although not much about that is known. And we know that eventually when the First Order rose to power, First Order forces did briefly arrive and occupy the skies over Endor before ultimately being destroyed by a Holdo maneuver. Which led to the Resurgent-class battlecruiser stationed over Endor ultimately falling out of the sky. At the end of the day, Endor is just one of the many worlds in Star Wars that plays a pivotal role as a serious battleground and then disappears into obscurity. There's a couple other worlds that have a similar history to them, but the one that has, I think, the most interesting story outside of the battle it's most known for is Geonosis, because beyond the two battles that took place there during the Clone Wars, it has ties to the Death Star program, and centers around the very interesting society of the Geonosians. If you'd like to learn about what happened to Geonosis after the Battle of Geonosis, I'll leave a link up here to a video I have on that. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments whether you think we should see more of Endor, or do you think it makes sense that this planet just kind of exists on the fringes, even after it's the site of a major battle. And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, or anywhere else in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.